Hello YouTube, this is Insane Monster, and as per the poll that was placed on my community tab, if you didn't know there was a poll, that's probably because you didn't subscribe. So, as for the winner of that poll, as you can see, it is what if Deku was Luffy's grandson? And where we left off was part 0, so we start at the beginning of the anime where the teacher is throwing up the papers saying that everyone wants to be a hero while he's talking about their future careers. Once he got all of his class settled after that, he was able to go through the list of people that are applying to UA, which are Bakugo, Izuku, and his sister, Imari. Imari, yes, Imari, his sister Imari, which no one is really surprised by that. They all know that those three in particular are the strongest in the school. So it doesn't really surprise them. And in this one, Deku still does his little notebook thing, writing everything down. And when Bakugo sees that, he says, "Are you really writing more hero stuff down in another one of those notebooks of yours?" He just looks back saying, "Well, yeah, obviously. I saw I saw a fight on the way here to school. It had Kamui Woods and that new Hero Mount lady." Bakugo just scoffs, saying, "Well, they aren't really that much, especially when I become a pro hero." And as Bakugo leaves, Amari tells Izuku, "He really is full of confidence, isn't he?" Izuku just says, "Yeah, a bit too much if you ask me." Amari just states, "Well, no argument there." As they head off to go home, Amari splinters away from Izuku, saying that she has to take care of something before going home. Deku just says, "Alright," and walks down the same path as in canon, but due to being trained in hockey, having both optic observation and armament, he's able to sense an incoming sludge villain and backs away. Once the sludge villain pops out, he looks around and sees Izuku, saying that he's going to take his body, freaking out because saying that he didn't expect that guy to be here. Izuku gets ready and fires a gum pistol, though going through his body and then reeling back, shaking his hand, yelling, "Oh God, that's disgusting!" As the sludge villain comes at him, he hurries up and dodges, and gets on the opposite side of the sludge villain, saying, "Well, your body's made out of that weird sludge, but it doesn't look like all of you is." As he armors his fist and does another pistol, but this time directly into his eye. The sludge villain writhing in pain, but suddenly a man pops out saying, "I am here." Seeing what's going on, he gets in front of Izuku and uses his smash, then just picks up the villain with the bottles. He thanks the kid Izuku, and Izuku's fanboying out a bit, say like obviously, and asks his All Might to sign his notebook. All Might opened it up and saw a bunch of hero notes and signed it on the first available page. Once that was taken care of, he hurried up and jumped, though Izuku wanted to ask him something, but he couldn't. He ended up, at most, scratching his pants a little bit with his finger. With All Might gone, he just scratches his head, saying, "Oh man," and just walks off. Though, unbeknownst to both of them, the part of the pants that Izuku scratched was the pocket where the sludge villains were being held. And, due to the force of All Might's jump, fell out of his pocket. Which is where Bakugo ends up being captured again. Once the explosion happened, All, All Might is already deflated and can't go anymore. So he hurries up and sees what's going on. And Izuku sees as well. He's wondering, what the hell aren't they? Why aren't they helping him? Why aren't they doing anything to catch the villain? Well, hearing that the sludge villain has a hostage, when he takes a good look, he sees that it's Bakugo. He hurries up and switches the second gear and blitzes right in there, thinking, I can only hold this for so long. Clenching his fist, he uses a pistol to go into the sludge villain, clean through, opening his hand, and then when it reels back, grabbing Bakugo's by his clothes, ripping him out, sending him flying over to the heroes. He turned off second gear and then used his rubber powers to launch himself upward. After that, he bites down on his thumb, saying, "Third gear," and inflates his bones in his fist and forearm to become a gigantic fist and armors it. As he sends it flying from to behind him, he coils it up, making it twist and all that, and then going for a gum elephant rifle, slamming right on top of the villain, not just smushing him, but spinning him around, sending parts of him flying. And the force of the wind does end up extinguishing the flames. Though, once Izuku gets back to the ground, he falls right on his ass, exhausted. Since the third gear does put a lot of pressure on his body. Mostly the part that he inflates. Then he gets up with heroes scolding him / praising him for his quirk, as well as the media questioning him, and he just doesn't really want any of this, so he just gums rockets out of there. Later on, we see Izuku going home with Bakugo saying, like always, running up, yelling at Izuku that he didn't need his help. And Izuku thinking, that guy's pride is way too much. But then being met up with All Might. And yes, this is going with him getting one for all. Mostly because currently All Might's power is 1 out of 60 of what it was in the past. Now, that's pretty crazy, I know, considering he throws a punch that can change the weather. But it's true. It's one out of 60 of what his power used to be before the injury. And he took on All for One with that power and still got his guts ripped out and still failed to kill him. So there is that. And Luffy cannot throw a punch that can change the weather. So that gives you a scaling on the power difference. Izuku freaks out, thinking, wait, All Might, what are you doing here? All Might explains that he's here to talk to him, but then deflates, puking up blood, with Izuku just stunned looking at this, saying, "You're not really All Might, are you?" He says, "Yes, I am All Might," and shows his wound to him, giving him the backstory of what happened. Izuku is stunned by this, but takes it as somewhat face value, considering that this might actually be All Might. And he then realizes that he's been doing hero work for over 5 years with that injury and thinks, this guy, he's even more amazing than I thought. Though he does offer him one for all, and he thinks for a moment and thinks, what exactly is the purpose of it? All Might looks at him and states, the purpose of one for all? It's actually quite simple. It's to protect this world. It's the reason I wield this power even with my injuries. Because I want to protect everyone in front of me. Izuku smiled and said, I should have known that'd be the answer you'd give. Yes, I accept. After that, All Might gave him something, his number and an address to go to when to meet up. When Izuku gets home, he is then tackled by his sister, putting him in a headlock, saying, what were you thinking, you maniac? With Izuku saying, hang on, what are you talking about? Squeezing even harder, his sister squeezing the headlock even harder, and Izuku saying, I'm made out of rubber, that doesn't mean that I can't be choked, are you nuts? And she just points with, making them look, seeing the report of Izuku saving Bakugo in broad daylight. Like that in front of the media. Saying, you know you can't do that without a hero license. You're just lucky that it worked out for you. He just sighed, saying, alright, I'm sorry. And then his dad, walking up with Hockey covering his fist, gives him a little knock on his head. Though, since Hockey doesn't really work on quirks, since this is what it is, a quirk gene being influenced by Luffy's changes to his body from his double fruit. But his dad does it just because it's the closest he can get, considering he can't knock his son, who's made out of rubber. But we get to the point where Luffy, I mean, when Izuku goes to where he's asked to go training and sees the garbage heap, with All Might explaining that this will be his training. Upon first glance, Luffy doesn't look that strong, but then Deku doesn't look that strong. Sorry if I mess up the names every now and then. I do apologize, but since Deku doesn't look that strong, All Might thinks that he might be weak, only to figure out that this kid is lifting a frickin' truck over his head, asking, I thought you had some kind of rubber body quirk. He says, yeah, basically, but even though it doesn't look it, there's a lot of muscle in here. My grandpa made sure of that. When he asked about his grandpa, he explains that he has the same quirk as his grandpa, and his sister has the same quirk as his grandma. And followed up with that his dad trained him to an insane point to do all kinds of things, which All Might then remembered something that happened during the sludge villain attack. He asked about his skin turning black the way it did. Deku grips his fist and use armament hockey on it, showing All Might, saying that this is armament hockey. It's some kind of skill and ability someone can learn. My grandpa taught it to me, though he put me through hell learning it. And even then, he said that it wasn't as bad as the hell his grandpa put him through. When he asked what exactly his grandpa's grandpa did, he stated that he tied balloons to him to send them to the sky and to get back before supper, threw him into a dungeon, a like a jungle, deep into a jungle, tossed him down a ravine, and a bunch of other crazy stuff. With All Might thinking, your family, your family heritage sounds insane. Deku just looked away with the I know it's so messed up look on his face, just smirking, just saying, yeah, I know, right? Then they just start training. Though after a while, Imari begins to notice him just running off somewhere, so she ends up following him and sees him training cleaning up a beach with some skeleton dude cheering him on. When she walks up to them, she asks, "What exactly are you doing, Izuku?" Izuku looks over and starts panicking, yelling, "Imari!" dropping the trash that was above his head on top of him, and then breaking it off of him, with Imari storming up, yelling at him, asking, "What?" I asked, "What are you doing here?" And he just doesn't know what to say. He can't tell her about all for one and all. I mean, one for all and all that, because if he does, then it might cause trouble. Then All Might steps in saying, "Excuse me, it's not his fault." She instantly used her love beam thing to try to turn him into stone, but All Might's way too old for her and has no actual attraction towards her, so he doesn't turn to stone. He's kind of like, "I'm not dating a kid," kind of thing. So there is that. And she's surprised by that and remembering something her grandmother told her, saying that if they're not attracted to you, if the male isn't attracted to you, or if a female doesn't envy your beauty from your power won't really turn them into stone with the beam. So once that once she remembers that, Izuku starts telling her to calm down and that they can explain. So All Might looks at Izuku asking, "Is this your sister?" He says, "Yes, it is," and then buffs up showing himself. He explains that he's training Izuku, and then and the training is cleaning this entire beach before the UA exam. Amari is surprised and looks at Izuku, saying, "Alright, I'm not gonna bug you about it, but you at least should tell Grandpa that you're training. He's been wondering why you haven't been coming by lately." But Izuku completely forgot. He's been so focused on training and keeping his grades up that he completely forgot to go visit his grandpa. But thinking, "Oh God, he's gonna kill me." All Might steps in saying, "I can come by and explain everything." And Amari just says, "Well, if you come by and explain that you're training him, he might be okay with it." Then, then about 2 days later, Amari, Izuku, and All Might go visit uh, Izuku's and Amari's grandparents, which are Luffy and Boa Hancock, with All Might saying, "Why are we going into the mountains?" And Amari just states that this is where their grandparents are, and then asks, "Why? How do you go here so frequently?" With them just saying, "Well, we go here all the time. It's not real big for us. We're fast enough and have enough power to get here. You're probably only exhausted because you're only using that skeleton face form of yours." Then All Might just had enough and buffed up, saying, "Alright, then let's make this a race." As they race with All Might looking back, thinking they can't quite keep up, but they're still incredibly fast. All Might did get there first, since it was kind of like like a path that only led one way. So he got there first, with Izuku and Amari getting there well, after him. Which we then see Luffy just drop in, walking up to Izuku, saying, "Where have you been? You were supposed to be training with me." And with All Might in his buff form saying, "Excuse me, are you Izuku's grandfather?" He says, as he looks at All Might, "Yeah, what about it?" As he states that he's All Might and that he's been training Izuku for something for the UA entrance exam. When he remembers his grandkid fanning out at All Might on the TV being the #1 hero, he remembers and says, "Oh yeah, Izuku has talked about you a lot. Well, come on in." With All Might saying, "Well, that was a quick mood change." Izuku just tells him, "Yeah, Grandpa really tends to act on his whim, so you don't know what he's going to do, but when he makes a decision about something, he follows through on it all the way." So they go in, and once they get in, they introduce All Might to Boa Hancock, with All Might saying, "Jeez, you seem to look a lot like your grandmother." And Mari says, "I know," with a big old smirk. And now All Might is explaining that he's training Izuku for the entrance exam, with Luffy stating that his cleaning a beach doesn't sound like much training to him, with All Might stating that doing it will not only get him stronger, but would also help with the community, considering how much trash is there. With Amari and Izuku explaining that the entire beach is practically covered in it. They even discarded cars and other vehicles and all kinds of stuff at that beach. With Boa saying, "Oh, that's disgusting. Honestly, the things people will do to a beautiful place like a beach." Then Luffy looks at All Might, stating, "Alright, so what's the real reason you're training him? I know you're holding back something." Which All Might sweats a little bit, with Izuku saying, "Yeah, I should have figured this would happen. Grandpa's intuition is always good. It's like insane." Then All Might just comes out and says it. Tells him about One for All and that he wants his grandson to inherit it, as well as the fact that he's been weakened to about 1/60th of his full power, showing him the wound, poofing back to a skeletal form. Luffy grins, walks up to All Might and says, "Jeez, you got real guts, don't you? Even when they're ripped out." With All Might kind of laughing nervously, and Amari saying, "Grandpa, that's not really that funny. That's just dark." But then Luffy said, "Well, if you're at 1/60th of what you're used to be, then let's spar a little bit. I want to see what my grandson can do, what kind of strength he'll be getting." So All Might asked, "Will this be sparring?" Luffy said, "Yep, more or less. My grandson has the same powers as I do, though he hasn't fully mastered it. Second gear, he does get a little bit tired after so long of using it, but it's not as bad as in third gear when when he gets writhing in pain from the rapid expansion." Second? Third? All Might asked. Luffy looks at him and says, "Yeah, basically. Second gear is whenever he forces the blood to pulse faster in his body rapidly, making him go incredibly fast. This also makes him produce steam off of his body. Third gear is when he inflates his bones with air by biting on his hand, more accurately his thumb, causing his bones to inflate to a large size. Then All Might thinks back to the sludge villain attack and remembers that he did both of that. So, once the sparring began, Luffy started off with hockey over his hands and feet, along with second gear. With All Might buffing up, he was able to keep up with Luffy's increased speed, and pretty impressed they were able to keep up with one another. Though Luffy still got slammed in the gut and sent flying. Luffy bounced back easily, jumping up still in second gear and now using third gear for an elephant rifle. All Might was able to do a smash against his elephant rifle. He had trouble and ended up being pushed back by the elephant rifle. But All Might was still able to get back up, with Luffy smirking, saying, "Ha, very few can stand up to that attack," as he shrunk down his hand back as well as turned off second gear. He says, "Maybe you can handle this," armoring his arm and then biting his forearm. Once he did that, Izuku yelled at All Might, "Look out! You're gonna get hit like crazy." He's just All Might begins to look and see that Luffy's body is beginning to inflate. And then the steam around him begins to form snake-like figure, creating fourth gear, Snake Man. Once that happens, All Might is surprised by a quick jab to the gut. He couldn't even see Luffy move, sending him flying. He was still able to get back up, though he found himself in a lot of pain. Luffy went up to him, smirking, saying, "You still can get up after that." He smirks and says, "Well, looks like I can trust you with my grandson then." Turning off fourth gear, he extends his hand to help All Might up. All Might poofs down to his Small Might form and takes Luffy's hand, making a joke saying, "Huh, so I guess I'm not the only one who basically inflates, huh?" After that, when All Might gets back to the house with Luffy, Izuku says, "Well, now you know why I'm scared of my grandpa. He's a frickin' monster." With All Might saying, "I'm not disagreeing with that." Then Boa chimes in saying, "Well, you're lucky he went with the fourth gear form that prioritized speed and precision over raw power." And All Might just looks at her saying, "What?" Izuku states, yeah, Snake Man is speed and precision. There's another one called Bounce Man where he gets a lot bigger and the force of his strikes are a lot more powerful." It's pretty insane. I can't really do it yet. I tried once and instantly burned myself out. With All Might saying, "Oh dear God, I don't even want to imagine getting hit by that." I near, I almost passed out just from the one that with speed. Jeez. So Luffy accepted the training for Izuku, and they went ahead training like they did for like usual. However, at this point, we shift our focus off from the training that they're doing at the beach to another location, a secret location in a shady place. There we see a man with whitish hair and a chapped face. I say chapped face because it isn't just his lips. With another man wearing a black breathing apparatus helmet. And with them is a man who has a big ass gold hook for a left hand with a scar across his face, just looking at the man with the chapped lips, saying, "Tomura." The intel All for One has given us says that we will soon have an opportunity to all take out All Might. But I unfortunately have grown too old. My body won't keep up with like I want it to. And there's still one person I want revenge on. Fortunately, him and that wife of his did not notice me getting sucked into this world as well. I was able to escape without their noticing as I've been hiding out, staying low all this time. When you're during the beginning, when I first got here, started some villainy, your master found me, gave me a place to stay in exchange for some work. But now my body can't keep up with the ravages of time. I taught you all that I can about hockey. You have both armament and you also have observation. So, before I die, you're going to take my power. Throwing Tomura a knife, he takes it, asking, "What is this?" The man says, "It's simple. You stab me in the heart, then you use the knife to take some of the meat from my body and eat it before I officially die. Doing that will transfer my power." Tomura was like, "Are you insane? How does that work?" Tomura just is looking at him shocked, but the man says, "Listen, I am the one who taught you to gain greater strength. I am Crocodile, and I've seen this happen before." Remembering the flashback of the Great War at Navy headquarters, where the same thing happened with Blackbeard, doing it to Whitebeard to gain his double fruit. It will work. My power isn't a quirk. That doc over there already confirmed it for you, remember? You just see a doctor with a fuzzy mustache and weird glasses in the corner, stating, "Yes, I confirmed it. Even though it should be impossible, it isn't a quirk, which means it doesn't have to follow the common rules of a quirk." Homer walked up with covering the knife and hockey, saying, "You sure?" He just smirked, saying, "Do it." Stabbing him in the chest without so much as a scream coming from him. Tomura takes a piece of his flesh and eats it as he, as Crocodile fades away. He says one last thing. "Remember our deal. Kill Luffy." As this happens, Omar begins to feel something strange happening in his body. He looks at his hand and it starts to turn to sand. We switch back to the training where we speed it up to where it's 3 months before the UA entrance exam, and the beach is all clean. With All Might plucking a hair, he tells Izuku, "Eat this," with Amari being there trying not to throw up from just knowing that her brother's gonna have to eat somebody's hair to gain that power. And Izuku's just, oh dear God, and just eats it. Right after drinking all the water he can. Then, after a while for it to digest, he has Izuku throw a punch. He charges it up in his arm and throws the punch, splitting the water, though with a large backlash on his arm, sending him flying a bit back, with All Might rushing over thinking, "Oh no, 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 don't let it be broken, don't let it be broken." Checking his arm isn't broken, with Izuku saying, "What? Is something supposed to happen?" All Might just says, "I thought your arm would be broken." Izuku just looks at All Might with a confused look, saying, "You know brute force can't break rubber bones, right?" With All Might just having a, "Oh, of course. Right." So some training continues, and Izuku continuously ends up with the backlash of the all for, I mean, one for all, just coming over and over again over him, and till Amari just says, "You're only using it in one part of your body. I mean, your rubber powers are all over, and they work just fine. So maybe spread it out." Izuku just thinks, "Oh yeah." Amari just says, "Maybe it was harder for you to realize that because you weren't seeing yourself do it." So Izuku tries it and goes full cowling, able to use about, let's say, 40% of one for all. Throwing a punch, still seeing that it's a bit much for something like, no, what, about still something like that, a bit too much, though thinking, saying that, well, I tried to hold back as much as I can so I didn't get that whole feeling across my arm. So maybe what would happen if I tried full powering it to what I can manage now? He tries it, trying to keep a balance, and finds himself at 60%. Though All Might states that 40 and 60% are a bit much for going up against typical villains, and that he could potentially kill somebody with that. So, for the last 3 months or so of what they have left before the UA exam, they hurry up and start training on minimizing the amount of one for all that Izuku could use so he wouldn't accidentally kill someone. All the way to the beginning, or at least the week before the UA exam, where he tells them to take the next week off and get some rest and some prep work uh, for the written test portion of the exam. During that week, he goes visits his grandpa and tells him that he gained the power and that he's going to make sure that he becomes the #1 hero. Luffy smirks at this and takes off his straw hat, putting it on Izuku's head, saying, "This hat was something I had for a long time. It helped me stay focused on my goal. It served its purpose for me. Now, use it to serve serve as a purpose to help you get to becoming the #1 hero. Izuku is just looking at his grandpa, smiling with some tears coming down, hugging him, saying thank you. As he leaves, Boa said goodbye to their grandson, stating that asking if the egg that she gave her granddaughter that she gave Amari hatched yet, with Izuku stopping, saying, "Wait, you gave her an egg? What kind of egg?" Which she then just points at her giant axe snake that's there, saying, "My snake laid an egg, so I gave it to Amari. They should have hatched by now." Though they tend to grow kind of rapidly, so there is that. With Izuku saying, "What?" and hurrying back home. So, well, and this will be the end of part 1 of What If Deku Was Luffy's Grandson.